A number of years ago, I was at a work conference in another city. One evening, a group of us, an even mix of men and women, almost all of whom were married, decided to unwind at a local bar. It didn't take long for the local men to start hitting on the women at our table. While our female colleagues laughed off the clumsy advances, we men were clenching our jaws at the sheer crudeness of it all. After one particularly bad attempt, one of the women remarked, "He's lucky I'm enjoying this drink, or he'd be wearing it." Another woman, with a playful smile in her voice, chimed in. "So, what if it had been someone like Ryan Reynolds saying that to you? Would he have gotten a different answer?" "Hell yes, and absolutely," came the immediate unanimous replies. "What if it meant, someone trailed off. Especially if it meant that." The women laughed genuinely. The men's laughter felt a bit more forced. These were professional women, ranging from attractive to stunning, and certainly not desperate for a date. They were dressed for a night out, mostly in their late 20s and early 30s. "So, what would you tell your husband?" one of the guys asked cautiously. "Why would I tell my husband?" came the swift reply, met with knowing laughter and nods from the other women. The man pressed on, his voice tight with anxiety. "But what if your husband was right here?" One of the women leaned forward, her elbows on the table, and looked him dead in the eye. I remembered her from lunch, where she had been proudly showing off photos of her husband and their adorable 5-year-old daughter. She spoke softly and politely, but with unyielding firmness. "I would tell him that he knows how much I love him, and he knows I'll always come home to him. But I'm not passing up this once-in-a-lifetime chance, and I'll see him tomorrow." It was clear to everyone at the table that she meant every single word. Several of the men's jaws dropped. I'm pretty sure mine did too. The guy next to me muttered, "No, you wouldn't." The woman shot him a look of pity. "Yes, I would. And every woman at this table would do the same." He was just as sober as she was. "You might go home with him tonight, but if I were your husband, you damn sure wouldn't be seeing me tomorrow." The table fell into an awkward silence. "Well, that certainly tells us married guys where we stand, doesn't it?" another man said, trying to break the tension. "Come on, guys, don't be like that," another woman said, trying to smooth things over. "It's not that big of a deal." But the mood was broken. The party dissolved quickly as people left in small groups, walking silently back to the hotel. I'm still not sure if the women at that table were representative of the norm. When I got home, I thought about asking my wife, but I never worked up the courage. I still haven't. And to be honest, I'm not sure I want to know the answer. I woke up disoriented, in a room I didn't recognize. Then it hit me. I remembered. Turning to my right, I saw him there, fast asleep. I glanced past him to the nightstand and saw a clock. 10:23 a.m. After a quick trip to the bathroom, I came back to the bed and watched him sleep. He was beautiful, but I knew I had to get home. I reached out and gently tapped his shoulder to wake him. It occurred to me that I didn't even know his name. I hadn't called him anything, unless you count Daddy, as in, "Who's your?" which I'd said last night at his urging. Actually, that's not quite right. He'd been pounding away and just asked, and I would have gladly called him my father. I knew I wouldn't be walking straight for days. I was already sore. "Alex, wake up, I have to go home." I shook him a little more, then a bit harder. I tried tucking my legs under me to get more leverage. He stirred, looked at me, then pulled me back down. "I have to get home," I repeated. "You're mine," he murmured, "and I'll let you know when you can go home." It was intense. A little while later, I drifted off again. I woke up again and had to search for that clock. 12:43 p.m. Crap. I quickly got dressed, showered with my clothes on, changed, and went into what looked like his home office. I wanted Mark to come get me, but I had no idea where here was. Learning the route this way wasn't exactly ideal, and if I had to explain to Mark why I didn't know the address, my chances of a smooth return would plummet. I had bailed on a big planned evening with him, and the likelihood he would be happy to get a call saying I needed a ride home was less than zero. Looking around the desk, I spotted a stack of mail. I found a utility bill with Alex's address on it. I pulled out my phone, ordered an Uber, and waited the 20 minutes for it to arrive. It pulled up a few minutes before 2 p.m. If Alex had woken up, I hadn't heard him. Considering our night, he hadn't gotten much sleep either. If I were in the right house in the right bed, I'd still be asleep too. I slipped out of Alex's house quietly. All things considered, very few words had been spoken between us. Our objective hadn't been conversation. Who was I kidding? We didn't have an objective. I nodded. He saw it as an invitation, then he grabbed me. He wanted someone to possess. I saw it as a scene from a romantic movie when the group of us were talking about being with someone famous. If last night was a movie, I was just an extra bent over in the treehouse, like some pornographic Tarzan film. There was some question about my departure, as Alex would surely remember who had been there. I sat in the Uber, stunned and lost in thought. You hear about men getting into trouble when the blood rushes to their smaller head and the big one stops thinking. I didn't have that particular anatomy, but I hadn't thought logically from the first dance with Alex until I was rummaging through his mail to find my location. Everything had been primal. I was amazed that this man had chosen me. Then he whispered in my ear that he would love me like I'd never been loved before. It was just a statement, no sweet talk or seduction, and my head nodded. My head was nodding again in the car now. Why wasn't I thinking? I stepped out of the car, clicking my heels and waking up in my old life. I felt like Dorothy, but this hadn't been a fantasy, even though it felt like one for 16 hours. It was real. I hadn't returned to a black and white humdrum world. I was returning to the life I desperately wanted. I knew I had work to do. I called Mark the moment I walked in the door. No answer. When I went upstairs, there was an envelope taped to our bedroom door. On the outside, in his handwriting, was a single word: Jessica. I went back downstairs, grabbed a soda, and sat down to read. There was no salutation. The note began abruptly. Last night, you broke my heart. I'm certain I will never recover, mostly because I do not wish to. The people we were with tried to tell me that no one could pass up a once-in-a-lifetime fantasy. I shouldn't be angry. That part is easy. They mean nothing to me. I will never see any of them again. Lying alone in our bed, I tried to be angry that our special planned evening was stolen from me without so much as a goodbye. But I felt no anger. I was just numb. I tried to be sad, but that didn't fit either. I felt let down and disillusioned. I thought I was half of a couple. I am not. We were never a perfect couple. I loved you. You loved you. I was a single man living a life destined for disaster. The disaster has occurred. It is time to start a new life. I have come to the clear conclusion that you are not someone I want in my life. Anyone who would willingly humiliate me because some athlete wanted a good time is not a good person, is not in love with me, is not worth thinking about, and in short, is simply not for me. But we have 2 wonderful children, to whom you have shown unwavering devotion until last night. That love and desire is reflected more than anything in the joy of raising these beautiful young people. Here is my decision. It is final. This note contains all of it. Should you have questions, refer to this note. The day our youngest child leaves home, for college, for work, or for their own life, I will file for divorce. Until that day, whenever we are in front of the children, or could be seen by others, I will present all the outward signs of loving you, just as I did before last night. Otherwise, I will be polite but unaffectionate. I will never socialize with, be in the presence of, or in any other way associate with any of the people we were with last night. I will never accompany you to any event outside our home unless we travel in separate cars. This way, when you leave me, I can say I expected it. We did, after all, arrive separately. It will be nearly 10 years before I divorce you, and I assume we will both still want physical intimacy. Before that can happen, I require a document from a clinic certifying that you are free of STDs. Once I have that certificate, we can be intimate at your request. You may find these terms agreeable or not. You may choose to date other people. You do not need my permission beyond what is outlined here. I only ask that you be safe and that you suspend intimacy with me until you have another clean bill of health if you are with others. Should you choose to file for divorce and attempt to deny me full access to our children, I will go to war. I will ruin us all, using every penny we both have. You are responsible. You caused this breach. You can live through your catastrophe with me, or we will all be consumed by it. Please, do not test me on this. I will not discuss this note with anyone. You are free, however, to show it to, talk about it with, or keep it from anyone you choose. That is your decision. Your life is your own. I have no say in it, nor do I want one. I took the kids to the aquarium. I packed enough clothes for a few days. We will not be coming home until I receive a text from you confirming you are home and have read this note. And remember, when we get back, I will smile, I will hug you, I will kiss you, and I will pretend I care about you. But I do not, and I never will again. He signed it with his full name, the way he signed our mortgage documents. I felt numb. I had thought I would have to grovel and beg and promise him all sorts of wonderful things for months, but that he would eventually forgive me. This sounded final. I thought about it more. He just didn't understand that I'd had an out-of-body experience. Isn't it usually the other way around? I just needed to tell him I was his and that I was sorry. I sent him the text. A few hours later, they arrived home. There was lots of excitement and laughter. They had seen penguins sliding on their bellies. There were hugs and kisses all around. The kids were hungry, so I made dinner. If you call hot dogs and macaroni and cheese dinner, which our two definitely do. We tag-teamed getting them washed up into their PJs and into bed. The house grew quiet. Mark turned on the TV in the living room. I came in about 15 minutes later and asked, "When can we talk?" "We can talk right now. Why? What's on your mind?" "Last night." "Oh, that. Read the note." "Mark, I did read the note. I want to find a way back. I want you to forgive me. What can I say? What can I do?" "It's simple. Refer to the note. I'd never seen him like this. I guess you're not ready." "I'm so sorry I hurt you. I'll be here when you want to talk." I thought, of course I've always been faithful. This was a fantasy, something that will never be repeated. It wasn't really like cheating. He'll work through the anger, I'll beg, and he'll forgive me. Terrific. I let out a breath of relief. He said terrific. That must mean he'd be ready to talk eventually. Later that evening, we went to bed. I told him I expected a kiss. "Practice for the note?" "You really want me to get tested?" "No, I don't really care if you get tested. I only require that if we are intimate, at any point in the future, you first present a certificate stating you are disease-free." "I get it. You want to get even with me." "Mark, these awful things you're saying are unfair to me." He held up his hand, palm out, signaling me to stop. I stopped. He's so angry, I thought. I spent the night with Alex. He can't get past it. He rolled over to go to sleep. "Jessica, this is the last conversation of this kind I'm going to have with you. It's in the note. You don't like it? Tough. I didn't like last night. That created the note. Live with it or move on." Well, apparently terrific didn't mean we'd be talking soon. It was just too soon. Emotions were running high. I'd just have to wait. We've always been the perfect couple. He can't hold this against me forever. It was Alex. None of the women in the group said they'd even try to resist if they were approached by some perfect physical specimen. We wouldn't even think about it. We'd just do it. I did exactly that. Who could have known it would cause him so much pain? I'll just take it slow. He'll come around. He has to. 2 weeks passed. We were lovey-dovey in front of the kids and polite and distant after they went to bed. He never made a move toward me. It was disorienting. There was no fighting because the emotions were still too raw. That meant I just had to wait. We were getting along, so I decided to test the waters to see if he'd softened. "Mark, it's been a while. I'd love to make love tonight." "See the note." Well, damn. I guess I needed to go to a clinic and get tested. Why hadn't I done that yet? I kept thinking this was just anger, that he'd come around, that if I ignored the note it would go away. This was going to take longer than I thought. But it would still happen. It had to. Okay, this was a big deal. But once his anger subsided, he'd yell at me, tell me what a cheater I was. I'd agree, and we'd work our way back. I could see now that wasn't going to happen quickly. Normal was a long way off. I had to be as close to perfect as possible. Alex had called my phone from his, and I had a flashback when I added his name to my contacts. I panicked. What if Mark found it? I deleted it immediately. In reality, it was a one-time thing. I could be whatever he wanted and stop worrying about how much of a cheater that made me. It would never happen again. A big part of a fantasy is being someone you would never be otherwise. Been there, done that. Now it was time to win Mark back. So the next step was getting a health certificate. I honestly dreaded the embarrassment. I stalled, not wanting to explain my fling to our family doctor. It was April now. I had to do something. I went to the local health clinic. That visit is designed to promote chastity. Looking at the other people in the waiting room, I thought, these are my peers now. It was a sobering thought. The clinic told me most of the results would be back in a few days, but the official letter would take about a week or 10 days. Great. The letter finally arrived. Opening it was a relief. I left the notice of my excellent health on Mark's desk without saying a word. After dinner, I noticed the letter was gone. I mentioned to Mark that I was interested in being intimate. He smiled and asked if I had condoms. I almost snapped, "Why would I have condoms?" as if he had truly insulted me. "I was just hoping you'd use them." "Use them? Use them," I said, louder than I should have. "When would I have used condoms?" "Well, with the men you're with, one would hope they'd use condoms, as I understand it." "Mark, there haven't been any men since that one night." "Oh, I just assumed it wasn't the only one." "Mark," I stopped. He was baiting me. He was making a point. I took a deep breath to calm down. "It was just one. It was just one night. It will never happen again," I said in the calmest voice I could manage. "So you're saying you don't have condoms?" Tears started to well up in my eyes. It wasn't the words, but the complete disinterest in his voice. It had been over 2 months, and he'd shown no affection, but anger wasn't going to help. I had things to fix here. "No, I'll get some." "Oh, I'd be happy to pick some up. Maybe I'll have time tomorrow." He smiled. Not a smirk, not a grin like he'd won the round. A genuine smile like he was pleased with my acceptance. "I'll let you know when I have them." "That would be lovely. You do that if you get a chance," I replied with as much sarcasm as I could muster. Suddenly, I wasn't as horny as I had been. He turned and walked away. Odd. Not laugh out loud funny. Just odd. He remained level, completely devoid of any emotion toward me. In a marriage, you learn to read emotional cues. Your partner shows a full range of feelings: happy, sad, playful, angry. Often they don't say anything, and you have to decide, do I poke the bear? This was totally different. There was no emotion at all. It was as if he were dealing with a stranger, matter-of-factly. I had to figure out how to break through that nonchalant facade. Crap. What if there was no facade? I could be in real trouble here. It's hypocritical to be angry at him. I can't provoke him into being angry with me. I'm on completely new ground. The next day, we had a wonderful time with the kids before dinner. Dinner was lively, and since they were being good, we let them watch more of Frozen until they started to doze off. We put them to bed in their PJs. I decided to wait and see if he'd bought the condoms. He said nothing. Another day passed, then a few more. It was almost June. Still nothing. "Mark," I finally said, "a few days ago you said you'd let me know when you bought condoms, remember?" Waiting clearly wasn't going to get me an answer. "Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. I did say that. I'm so sorry." This psychological warfare was proving to be difficult. I felt defeated. Not only was my loving husband no longer loving, he wasn't even bothered. Tears welled up as I replied, "No, it's okay. I'll pick some up." I wanted to add that I needed to feel some affection, even if he didn't, but the thought made me sick. It wouldn't provoke him. He'd just calmly agree. He shook his head. "Oh no, I bought them the next day. Just like I said. I just forgot that I told you I'd let you know. That was thoughtless of me. I apologize. Thoughtless my ass." "Oh, that's okay," I mumbled, though it wasn't. "I just didn't see the box." I didn't buy a box, I bought two. Two? Well, it has been a while for me. I figured we might need two. I probably won't last long. I don't know if I can do this. After almost 3 months, a man goes out to enable himself to have sex and buys a one-night supply. And since he's so horny, the night probably won't even be that great. I have to deal with this too. I just don't know how. Mark, I love you. You're breaking my heart. We can't go on like this. What can I do? About what? I sucked in a breath and held it. I let it out slowly, not trying to be subtle. What do you mean, about what? He tilted his head. I'm confused. About is a preposition meaning concerning, and what is, well, I guess an adverb, but its meaning should be clear. What is it you want to know? About us, Mark. You don't show any interest in me anymore. You barely think about me. I want us to go back to how we were. What do I have to do? Read the note. I started to cry. He walked away. There was no sex. A week passed. He never brought up the lack of intimacy, never mentioned anything. We were two happy roommates with two small, happy roommate buddies. I finally decided I needed some relief. Mark, I'd like to make love tonight. Sure. He paused, then turned to look at me. I assume you mean with me. I rushed to the bedroom and closed the door. He didn't arrive right away. He opened the door, stood in the threshold, and then said, I'm happy to be with you. It was such a cheap shot. I promised myself I wouldn't resort to cheap shots. I'm better than that. I understand you meant with me. I would be happy to join you. Happy to be with me. No thanks. Again, I apologize. Let me know if you change your mind, tonight or in the future. He had just told me again, as clearly as possible, that unless I found the answer, we were done. We were just marking time. He gently closed the door, and I cried longer and harder than I ever had before. I waited until he came to bed, more as penance than anything else. I lay there and said, Mark, make love to me. He lay down next to me. It was wonderful. Mark, thank you. That meant a lot. She just went on and on about how Mark needed to grow up and get a spine. There wasn't a woman alive who wouldn't trade a night of wild sex with some NFL star for a little groveling and the great life that followed. She told me I needed to make him let me grovel and get on with life. Clearly, she didn't understand Mark. Hello, I heard him say. Stop it now. No. The kids had seen a turtle on TV and were obsessed. They wanted one. Well, one each. We were sitting down, enjoying lunch. The phone rang. I wondered who it could be. Mark, was that a telemarketer on the phone? No, it was Sarah. Oh, I see. What did she have to say? Nothing really. She asked if I had time to meet with her. I could imagine his response. Damn, I remembered his entire conversation. Not even a hell no, just a simple no. At least she had the good sense not to call back. Our interaction followed the same pattern as any of our other talks about our problems. I'd ask a question, Mark would give a simple answer, and that would be the end of it. There was nothing for the kids to pick up on that was outside their attention span. From the 1 or 2 words, I knew not to push. Everything was fine. I expected my cell phone to be blowing up with messages from Sarah, who wouldn't have understood the nature of our exchanges. I checked my phone and found voicemails and texts from Sarah. She was furious. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind when I talk to him. Sarah, the only way you'll talk to him is if he's lost his mind or he's dead. He will have nothing to do with anyone from that night, especially you. What did you say to him after I left anyway? I texted back. Nothing much, just that you loved him and would be home the next day, that any of us would have done the same. I told him not to worry. What did he say? You know, he had this hollow look. He didn't say much. Hollow? Maybe bewildered, confused. Then he rallied, told us we were dead to him, and left. He felt betrayed, Sarah. I betrayed him. He's not going to just snap out of it. I have to find the way back myself. She was speaking from her own perspective. I paid close attention. Well, that's not true. I sat silently until she seemed to run out of steam. Then I said I had to go. My routine with Mark worked better. I often asked him to kiss me. He never corrected me. nor did he seem genuinely happy about it. But if I tried to bring up getting back to normal, I was referred to the note. It was just over a page long, but I could recite those few words from memory. I figured he probably could too. I had to change the scenery, maybe at the annual neighborhood barbecue. Our housing development has a small park with a tennis court, some swings, an open field for baseball, and several picnic tables. Every 4th of July, there's a neighborhood barbecue. We always went. 2 of the couples we were with that night also always went. Mark told me to take the kids. They were excited to go, and he might catch up with us later. I gave him a wistful look, wordlessly begging him to come. He smiled and said he should be honest. There was no chance. He wasn't going to be confronted by, as he put it with air quotes, those people. So the kids and I went. 2 of the moms were watching a group of about a dozen kids of the same age, so the other parents could get some adult time. The moms even had reliefs arranged with other mothers. I could leave my 2 and mingle, but I honestly didn't know who I would even look for. Across the street from the kids' play area, I saw a man about my age sitting by himself in his yard. He looked lonely and sad, though I didn't know anything about him. I walked over to say hello. He stood up as I approached. We introduced ourselves. His name was David Chen. He saw me flinch at his name. "I'm so sorry, David. I remember reading about the accident." He paused, misty-eyed, and held up a finger as if he needed a moment. He walked to his open garage and brought back a second chair. We sat down. We both watched the kids playing across the street. A couple of minutes later, he started again. "I've kept this bottled up inside me, and I think it needs to come out. I hope you don't mind." "No, really, no. It might sound strange, but if I could help someone else with their problems right now, it would make me feel much better." He continued his story, though it felt like he was asking me questions he wanted answers to. "I got home early, around 4 how. Judy and Sally weren't there, which was strange, but I figured she had some last-minute shopping and they'd be home soon. But they never came home. It was Christmas Eve." "Mr. Chen, David, you don't have to do this." He stopped and looked at me. I gestured for him to continue. "Yes, I do. I need to talk about that half-second. I just have to." He paused. I fell apart. I was starting to get really worried when there was a knock on my door. It was 2 police officers. They told me my wife and daughter had been in an accident and were pronounced dead at the scene. They were short on details, but they knew a truck had run a red light and hit them. I knew I had to go to the hospital, but I couldn't drive. One of the officers drove me in my car, and the other followed in the police car. I still don't remember anything from that time until I was driving home alone. He looked at me abruptly. "Can I get you something to drink?" I asked if he was having a beer. He was. I said a bottle would be great. He disappeared for a moment and came back with 2 bottles. In a glass or from the bottle? Where was I? Oh, the man who hit them was a truck driver. He fell asleep at the wheel. When he found out who I was, he nearly choked. His first words were, "I'm so sorry. I've been so worried. It was my fault." That stunned me. How could it have been his fault? He paused again and looked across the street at the kids playing. They were a mix of ages, but seemed to be getting along well. He started talking again. "I think you're doing well. It must have been incredibly sad. I'm so sorry to make you dredge it all up." "You're wrong. I sat out here half hoping someone would come talk to me. I saw how loving you are with your children and that you were looking around, trying to find a place to be while giving them some space, but still being able to watch them. That's very observant of you. I wish their father had come with us, but he and I are going through a tough time. It's all my fault. Hopefully, time will heal the damage I caused." "Oh, that's what you meant," he said. I looked at him, my head tilted. "When you said it would make you feel better to hear someone else's problems, do you want to talk about it?" I couldn't. "No, I don't think so. It's consumed us for more than 4 months. I started to cry, then wailed. Just like you, it would do me good to hear the problems of a new friend. Maybe I can help. Clearly, not talking about it is the wrong approach." I realized the reason I wanted to keep the story hidden was embarrassment. You can't just say you left your husband during a romantic getaway to sneak off with some well-built jock for a good time. So I tried to explain it to him as I had experienced it through some fantasy-like fog. He listened very attentively. He hasn't shown any anger. No. As strange as it sounds, I'm hoping he's just too mad to let it out. Well, that's one possibility. He didn't leave, so you have the chance to show him how sorry you are. I sense you really are sorry. More than that, I'm crushed. I have to show him it was a fantasy gone wrong and that I'll make it up to him somehow. We talked for a long time. Having been alone so much, he was eager to share how the grief of losing his wife and daughter was just starting to fade to a manageable point. He told me he never thought he could risk his heart again. He couldn't live a life where he might lose another child. He had always wanted to be a father. I confided in him about my struggle to find my way back to my husband. I had to figure out how to explain a terrible mistake in judgment. He asked a few questions and listened brilliantly. One of them was why I was willing to approach him about this, but hadn't found someone else to talk to. I turned to watch the kids. They were all starting to get tired. A few were getting cranky. If I wasn't mistaken, there would be squabbling and tears soon. I thanked David for a great afternoon and went to get my two to head home. Their hot dogs and ice cream came up on the way home. It occurred to me that I hadn't eaten a single thing from the mound of food available. I walked into the house in a rather foul mood. It would have been great to tell my husband about the time I spent helping a lonely man who had lost everything have some fun. But Mark and I didn't have the kind of connection where such a conversation was possible. Instead, we got the kids to bed and then used a couple more condoms. It was approaching 5 months with no progress. I had to get us out of this limbo. I had a plan. Maybe if we went out, had a nice evening, and spent time with other people, we could come home, be intimate, and start the process of getting back to normal. I talked Mark into it. Based on his note, I even volunteered to drive my own car. We arrived at a great place we'd never been to before, just after 9:00, and heard their band start to play. I saw a table of 4 people next to an empty one. I pointed us toward the empty table. We vaguely recognized 2 of the 4 people at the other table. We introduced ourselves and sat down to order drinks. We were talking when Phil and Jane, a couple from that night, arrived to join the other 4. Jane's face lit up and she waved at us. I said hello. Mark just stared at me. We sat there, just the 2 of us, chatting. He finished his beer. He excused himself to go to the bathroom. 10 minutes later, I realized he hadn't gone to the bathroom. He'd gone home. I was so ashamed as he left me by myself. I was starting to feel what I had done to him, leaving him for someone else, publicly embarrassing him. I checked my phone. Oh my, Mark says he has a headache. We're going to head home. Of course, there was no text from Mark. He had already left. I paid for our drinks. At least his 2-car rule helped me pretend I was joining him. So much for a night out. Fall was setting in. Most of the year had passed with very little change. The funny thing was, if we were fighting and life was unbearable, it would have dragged on so slowly. But that wasn't the case. We actually got along great. If your definition of great is constant, cheerful politeness, it was a lie. I was trying to be a good wife, and he complimented my cooking, congratulated me on every little thing I did, and was downright loving in front of the kids. But lovemaking was non-existent, and even though he made sure I was satisfied from our encounters, it felt like checking the house to make sure the doors were locked. A useful habit worth doing, but not exactly high on the emotional scale. I found I was a nervous wreck. I wanted him back so badly, and he seemed determined not to come back. You can't live with that anxiety, so you settle in and come to accept the lack of emotion. Every time I thought through our situation, I came to the same conclusion. Mark loves me. I hurt him. He has to work through his pain, and then we'll find our way back to where we were. Another week passed. I had to consult an expert. Mark would never go, but I explained my situation and asked if Dr. Wilma Evans, a Ph.D., would see me after I made some calls to find a therapist. Her office said she normally only worked with couples, but my story intrigued her. I went to see her. She had me sit down and asked if I needed anything to drink. I told her I was fine. She said, "I see here you left your husband in front of a group of friends to have sex with a strange man. I don't think I've ever heard a story quite like yours." He wasn't a strange man. It was Alex Lavaliere, I said. A handsome man. How does that affect what I said? Hello? It was Alex Lavaliere. Well, I see your problem. How does your husband respond when you remind him who the man was? He won't even discuss it. Why do you suppose that is? I guess I don't really know. Oh, come on now, you do know. You sent me the note he left you. What does it say? He's so upset he's not ready to talk about it. No, that's what you wanted to say. What are the words? His words? I winced. She was right. I don't know why I hadn't believed what it said, but until that moment, I thought he loved me, and the note was just a description of his pain. He's unhappy he married someone so self-absorbed she would throw her marriage away for a one-night stand. He's not angry, not even sad. Still, I want him back. It was a terrible mistake. Has he deviated from anything in the note? Does it seem like he will? This note is from almost 8 months ago. No. In fact, the closest I've seen him get to emotional is when he tells me to read the note. He never gets angry. He's told me to read that note 100 times or more. Do you see a way back? Or is it just a hope? There has to be a way. You can't ruin a marriage in one night. I believe the one-night stand played a role, but not the decisive one. What would you say to that? He said nothing to them. He said in the note he'd never be around any of them again. The other night we went out, and a couple who had been with us showed up. I had no idea they would be there. He excused himself to go to the restroom and never came back. How did that make you feel? That's what I was getting to. I was just humiliated. My husband, my date, my friend just left without warning, without a word. He didn't go off with some glamour girl. He just left as he had promised me in the note he would. Still, I was humiliated. And I'm not seeing what he expects. We should talk about this for a bit. Why did you think he would see it differently? A group of us had a conversation once. We all laughingly said we would all cheat for one night with the right movie star or the right athlete. Your husband too? No, he wasn't there for most of it. I don't think I ever talked to him about it. It was just talk anyway. I think we were all serious, but it was also different, an abstract night away from your spouse. My night wasn't that. I snuck away while we were out with friends. God, how could I be so stupid? Dr. Evans was gentle with me. There's plenty of time for that. But first, think about what you did and why you did it. Tell me about that. Mark and I have always been partners, equals, friends. That's a wonderful, important part of my life. This was almost an abstract concept. I thought about it, he wanted me, he took me. It was great for that reason. The sessions continued. One day when I arrived, Dr. Evans said she had something to tell me. I called your husband, she began. You did? I asked, delighted. You said you might, but I didn't think you ever really would. What did he say? That sounds like Mark. Was he ever responsive to the idea of counseling? Well, I finally had to cut him off and tell him I wasn't interested now or ever. He responded that he had a much higher chance of getting me to buy a policy than I had of getting him into counseling. We said a friendly goodbye. I saw Dr. Evans several more times. I talked about my emotions. She asked about the value Mark and I placed on sex. I told her it was especially important to Mark and quite important to me. Her next question sent a chill down my spine. Living without love will affect Mark as well as you. My decision came from that question. I worked hard to get the wording right. I brought my own memo to the next session and asked for her opinion. I handed it to her and let her read it. My dearest Mark, I find it hard to see how we can overcome my abandonment of you and begin to be what we were. I thought only of myself. I told myself it was a fantasy gone wrong. In the fantasy, you would see that any wife would do the same. In time, maybe you would even come to value me more because the hunk had chosen me. I didn't know how it would feel to be left without explanation and without recourse until a few months ago when we went out and you left me. I felt a shame beyond anything I had ever experienced. My humiliation was just a small fraction of what you must have gone through. It was that I left, not what I left to do, that destroyed you. I only realized that afterward. It is time we bring the catastrophe I started to an end. My first prayer is that you can somehow find it in your heart to forgive me, allowing us to become all we were and all we could be. Having learned from my own folly, I am so hopeful, and I offer you my absolute promise to be devoted to you in every sense in our future. I have tried to avoid making this an ultimatum, but without one, I can never undo what I have done. Again, I completely understand if you can never find the path for us to be a married couple again. If not, I am sorry I broke our marriage in such a terrible way. I hope you will be able to maintain your politeness toward me. That has helped and will continue to help my state of mind. But if we cannot be as we were, I will ask for a divorce. I assure you of this. I will live as close to you as I can, and we will work to share our beautiful children as often as possible. We will work out a path. If I file for divorce, we will both move on. I promise you, if you ever wanted it, I would come rushing back to you until the moment I am exclusive with another man. I am sick that I threw you away. You are my love and my heart. I hope that once I file for divorce, you will start dating. I will start too. I cannot argue with your decision that you should love and be loved. Until future loves find their way into our lives, we can continue as we are. At that time, or at any time, I can move to the guest room or move out. For the sake of our children, I hope you will treat me kindly. You have not let my foolishness damage them so far. I have faith you will remain just as vigilant going forward. With all my love, Jessica. The therapist said she was proud of my progress. We agreed that I no longer needed her services once I told her I was ready to be content with whatever decision was made. What convinced her was when I said, honestly, my dreams would come true if he agreed to come back to me. But there's no real chance of that, and I'll be happy to move on once he confirms it. I smiled and told her I had emailed a typed copy of my note. Everything from Mark was handwritten. I gave it to him and told him it was important, but that he shouldn't read it right then. He opened the folded note and started reading anyway. I'm not sure how far he got before he refolded it and wiped a tear from his eye. Thanks. I'll give this its due consideration. I can tell this is an honest, heartfelt response. He turned away. Stiff and formal, I thought. Give it its due consideration? But a tear and a thank you were neither stiff nor formal. Maybe there was a chance. All I could do now was wait. Several days passed. I was adjusting to the idea that he hadn't lost his temper that night. He had lost his love for me. I was preparing for the inevitable. Saturday was the kids' play date. Mark volunteered to drive them to their friend's house. He was gone longer than seemed reasonable, and I started to get worried. I heard the garage door open. He came into the den where I was sitting. Do you have some time to talk, Jessica? His voice was the polite, but not particularly friendly, one I had grown used to. This was it. Sure, it's early, but I think I'd like some wine. I'll get it for you. I stayed curled up on the couch. He came back a little later with a glass of white wine for me. He had his usual coffee. You left in a way that was most likely unchangeable, and certainly unforgivable. You should proceed with a divorce. I was sad, but not surprised. My weeks with the therapist had prepared me for this. Mark, I am so sorry, and I understand. Our attorney, Owen Bridges, will be happy to handle the paperwork if we let him know we both want him to represent us. Oh, that's excellent. We both really admire him. We'll save money and grief, and I'm sure we can do this in a way that ends fairly. I do worry about the children. I have a suggestion, I said. I'd been thinking about it a lot, to be honest. Last 4th of July, at the neighborhood picnic, remember I wanted you to go, and you said it wouldn't happen because people from that night would be there. Anyway, after I got the kids settled with their friends, I noticed a man sitting by himself in his front yard. He looked so isolated in a single lawn chair, so I went over to introduce myself. We talked for a few minutes, and he excused himself to get a second chair from his garage. He came back and we sat down to talk. You never mentioned him. No, I only saw him that one time. At the time, I was more focused on getting you back than on choosing a conversation topic about an afternoon with a single man. I see your point, he said with a kind smile. Our conversation was light, despite the subject. So, who is this single man? Do you remember the name David Chen or Sally Chen? Sally Chen? Weren't she and her daughter killed by a drunk driver? Yes. Their house is directly across from our common playground. He was broken. They had only just moved here. He had recently gotten a big promotion and relocation. The accident had happened 18 months before, and he was only just starting to come to terms with it. How sad. It was, and he was lost. We just talked and bonded. He was having trouble connecting with friends. He didn't fit in with the married crowd or the single crowd. Evenings when he tried to go out often ended in disaster. Everyone wanted to set him up with a single friend, but he couldn't even consider it. We haven't spoken since, but one of these days, I'm going to go knock on his door. Wouldn't that be great, though it hurts to say it? The kids already play over there often. It would be a way for us both to have them, or almost have them. They'll be okay, you know. I've seen it work really well when the parents fought all the time but were friendlier apart. This is sad for both of us, and yet we had to go through it. I wiped away a tear. This will be a little different, as we've been supportive of them, but with the way we've shown love for each other and for them, it should be good, though. I do love you, Jessica. It's beyond everything I know, but we should move on. It's not enough, in my opinion. I pushed at him, starting to cry. I was about to lose it. Stop it. I get it. That has to be in the past. We have to move forward. Dwelling on it will just make us both less happy. We don't need that. You're right. I'll do my best. I guess I should read my own note, he said with a genuine laugh. What about you? Are you looking at any prospects? What a strange conversation. A wonderful marriage wrecked in one evening, and here we were, calmly discussing our separate futures. Afterward, Mark's life moved on more smoothly than mine. I suppose I could have predicted that. I did get in touch with David Chen right away, and we started to build a relationship. It wasn't love, exactly, but we were both damaged. Mark was clearly happier after we filed for divorce. In a way, I was glad, too. He has such a strong sense of duty that he would have given all those years to make sure our children didn't suffer. In the end, we both would have been bitter and incapable of love. About a year after the divorce was final, Mark announced he was marrying a widow with a young daughter. David and I were friends, then lovers, and he was always kind to me. Dating didn't work out well for me. Every man in the immediate area had heard about my fling and thought I was good for a wild night, but not worth considering for anything more. We decided to get married. We are happy. The children are doing well, getting to be with either parent as often as they like. It is a good life. I just try to limit the times I think about everything I had to lose to get this good life.